Here's what a classic Bluey episode looks like in Australia.
You're so beautiful.
And here's what that same episode looks like in the USA.
You're so beautiful.
But just how many episodes of Bluey have been changed throughout the entire world? Well, today I'm going to be taking you on a whirlwind tour around the globe to find out. We'll be covering episodes that were slightly edited to those that were completely banned, starting with language edits. And some of them make sense when you hear them, but look odd on paper. In the original Australian version of Bluey's episode Barbecue, everyone calls peppers capsicums. In Australia, that's what they call them. In the US, it isn't. And if you ask me, everybody in the US is wrong. But the line does get swapped to peppers. It's a tiny change. It's dumb in tone, but fine in practice. You won't miss the meaning, but you will miss the local flavor. And that's kind of the whole point of the show. Then there's the episode Fruit Bat, where a little penguin bathroom gag got the chop in the UK. The kids are playing a game, it's silly, and they're pretending to be penguins. Harmless, still, it vanished from some original airings because someone called it dangerous. That's the weird part. This is a show about imagined chaos. The cut doesn't hurt the story, but it does yank a small, goofy gag out of a perfect, silly moment. Some edits are conservative to say the least. In the credit scene for the 12th episode of the first season, Bob Bilby, Buddy picks his nose for nearly the entirety of an outro. Gross for sure, but still age appropriate depending on who you ask. The US version trims the finger to mouth moment. Disney probably thought kids shouldn't be encouraged to eat boogers on screen. Reality says toddlers already do it, but that's where content teams and reality disagree. And then there's buttermilk. In the original, there's a background joke that shows a poop and it's left in.
You're so beautiful.
The US edit removes it. No one is harmed. It was tiny, off to the side, and yet it's one of those edits that make people scratch their heads the most. The joke wasn't for shock, it was for texture. Removing it flattens the screen just a little bit. Some lines actually got changed for cultural safety. I've heard rumors that a word the creators used casually was later judged offensive to Indigenous Australians. I've searched where I can to find what word was used, but nothing's really come up. I just know that segment was re-recorded and the line was replaced, which to be honest was probably a good call considering today's cancel culture. Context doesn't always save every word, and when a single syllable carries real hurt, swapping it out is probably the right move. Other cuts were about subject matter. One of the strangest patterns is how mentions of pregnancy and birth were handled. A joke where Bandit and Bingo play pregnant dad, which is a visual gag roleplay. This was trimmed from certain regional airings. And then comes the real headline. The episode Dad Baby was removed from Disney Plus in the US for being all about a dad pretending to be pregnant. That one is not a tiny trim. It's the complete removal of an episode. This one seems rather weird to me. All of this makes me feel like we should go over the episode Dad Baby, especially for my American viewers. Some people call it controversial, others call it one of the funniest Bluey episodes ever. Either way, it's the reason Disney Plus quietly hid an episode from some viewers. So let's go through it properly. Dad Baby opens with a normal Bluey setup. Bingo finds something Australians call a papoose. If you've never heard the word, it looks like a weird sock for a child so you can carry them in the front. It's a real baby carrier. Bluey discovers it and the game begins. Bandit has to be a pregnant dad, and Bluey decides they'll play a game where Bandit carries Bingo like a baby. Simple, right? Well, it gets a little stranger than that. Bandit leans into it, making jokes about sore backs and asking Bluey to rub his feet. He mimics some of the things Chili goes through. Chili is not very pleased about this, but overall the episode is affectionate, goofy, and then it escalates. Because Bluey wants the roleplay to be real, she goes all in. Bandit ends up in a full birthing setup. He hits things with his belly for effect, or maybe on accident, and finds himself on a mission to prove he can do it properly. After all, that is the moral lesson of this episode. If you're gonna do something, do it properly. Then Bingo goes feral. She starts kicking him, and when Bingo tries to eat some dim sims, a classic Australian snack, she hoards them like a tiny monster. Bandit takes a beating in this episode. The scene stops being charming and starts looking messy and loud. That, after all, is the show's strength. It leans into that mess. It makes parenting feel chaotic, and it makes the kids' games feel very real. Sometimes way too real. The peak is when Bluey, Bandit, and Bingo stage a home birth. At one point, their neighbor Pat is roped into participating, even though he was trying to watch the cricket. Pat ends up practically above Bandit's lap, trying to deliver Bingo. On the surface, it's supposed to be a funny gag. From the outside, it can look a little, weird. Let's just take a closer look at this scene here.
I got a foot!
Parents watching this episode as adults tend to pick up on a different set of cues. That's ultimately why the episode landed on the censorship radar, because the episode had so many spicy implications. Bingo squeezes herself out, says hello, and then retreats back in. And the whole thing turns into a physical comedy sketch. Hands in, feet out. Pat ends up cheering and occasionally recoiling in horror as dim sims fall out. Bandit looks spent, shell-shocked, like a dad who's just been through something he can't explain, which for the most part, this would be very hard to explain. While all of this is happening, another neighbor walks by and witnesses the horror. After some struggle, Pat suggests they go through the sunroof, obviously referring to a C-section. It's obvious they were trying to teach children about some very important lessons here, but America doesn't like that. It is an extremely funny episode. We even get Pat holding Bandit's hand and singing. After Bingo comes out, Bandit names the pretend baby Chili after her mum. And there's a cute beat where Bandit is grateful for the birth, but the journey to that beat is messy and very suggestive, probably intentionally so. It's not graphic, there's no real harm. It's the implications from the episode that trips people up. A neighbor sticking his hand into Bandit's papoose for a laugh looks bizarre through an adult lens. Kids will laugh at the ridiculousness. Parents might see the framing and worry about the questions it will lead to. And that worry turned into complaints. According to people who used to work on those channels, complaint letters are taken very seriously. And when you're running a global platform, you can't ignore a flood of angry emails. Despite all that, the episode has some real charm to it. Fans loved it, including me. It plays like a sketch about what parenting feels like when you reduce it to roleplay. Bandit gets humbled, Bluey gets to experiment, and Bingo is very, very mischievous. The episode's message, that pregnancy is not a joke and that parenting is hard, lands when you step back from the discomfort. But taken out of context and shown to a household not expecting it, it becomes a rather awkward surprise. And of course, there is another layer. Disney wasn't the only place that edited things. The US edits shifted jokes, changed a few lines, and cut one or two physical gags. Season 3 of Bluey saw the heaviest pruning. A throwaway line about a vasectomy in one episode became a joke about the teeth in the US cut. I'm sure one or two of you have seen the videos about Bandit being infertile, and that's where this comes from. A groin hit was removed in another episode. Some edits were later reverted, others stuck. This patchwork of versions is now normal for shows crossing cultures. It's how a local voice becomes global friendly. So what can we actually make of Dad Baby being pulled in parts of the world? Well, I think there's two things. One, the episode itself is brilliantly uncomfortable, in a way Bluey often is. It takes awkward, real-world parental moments and plays them loud. And the second thing we can take away, the censorship reaction is understandable from a corporate standpoint. It wasn't about whether the show was bad, it was about optics, and optics make companies nervous. Fans, meanwhile, still rate the episode highly. That includes me. Community polls and IMDb scores show a split. Many loved it, and a smaller group found it quite alarming. That split is typical for anything that pushes the envelope in children's media. Bluey pushes it a lot. Usually it wins you with warmth. Sometimes it asks a hard question parents aren't ready to answer. To close this out, most of the edits are small. They swap a word, remove a background gag, or rephrase a line to avoid scaring kids. Some changes feel silly, others feel necessary. If you want to watch the original, it's out there. Not on every platform, but you can find it on YouTube at the very least. Decide for yourself. Watch it as a sketch about an overcommitted dad and a mischievous kid, or watch it as a lesson in why global platforms sometimes choose the safe route. Either way, it's a Bluey episode that got people talking for a reason. And honestly, that's exactly the sort of thing good children's television should do. But to me, what's really funny about all of this is how fans became the real archivists. Before Disney re-uploaded the cleaned versions, people screen recorded, clipped it, and started trading the original Australian cuts online. There are whole Reddit threads pages that are now dedicated to tracking which episodes got altered where. In my search, I even stumbled across a spreadsheet on Reddit mapping every known censorship change by country. It's the kind of internet detective work that only happens when a show really matters to people. The edits might erase seconds on paper, but fans make sure none of it actually disappears. But with that said, that's all I've got. So thank you for sticking through all of the edits. If you like this kind of deep dive into the weird corners of shows you thought you knew, hit the subscribe button. There's lots more where that came from. So if you enjoyed, please do let me know.